The bridge of the Valiant Dawn was quiet. Captain Pierce stood behind his command chair and looked at the star charts in front of him. His crew had been together for 2 years now. They knew each other well. Right now, they were doing a boring job. They were mapping asteroid fields near the Expanse. It was not exciting work, but it paid their bills. "Captain, I'm getting something strange," Lieutenant Park said from her station. She worked at the communications console. Her fingers moved quickly across the controls. "It's a distress signal, but it doesn't sound normal." Walked over to her station. Commander Greg came with him. "What do you mean?" asked. Adjusted her earpiece and ran the signal through several filters. "It sounds alive, sir, like a living thing is calling out. It's not a machine signal. I've never heard anything like this in our database." She played the audio. A strange sound filled the bridge. It was beautiful but also sad. It rose and fell like a song. Several crew members stopped working and listened. The sound seemed to speak directly to their hearts. Then they heard the fear in it. The beauty became something painful. "Can you tell where it's coming from?" asked. Worked for another minute. Then her eyes went wide. "Sir, I'm checking with the Galactic Coalition databases. The signal matches their biosignatures." Everyone on the bridge went silent. They all knew about they were one of the oldest races in space. They looked like dragons from old Earth stories. They had technology that was hundreds of years ahead of most other species. They also thought they were better than everyone else. Humanity had tried 3 times to be friends with them. Each time they had said no. They made it very clear that they thought humans were too primitive. "They never ask for help," Greg said. "They especially don't send out distress signals." "This one is," replied. Her voice was tight. She checked her console again. "I'm reading weapons fire, multiple contacts, sir. I think it's the swarm." Felt his stomach turn cold. There were bad news. They were like space bugs that ate entire planets. They turned everything into more of themselves. The Coalition had pushed them out 10 years ago, but people said they were rebuilding somewhere in dark space. "Tell me what you see," ordered. Pulled up what information she could find. "The ship under attack is called Eternal Flame. It's a colony ship. Sir, if it's fully loaded, there could be tens of thousands of people on board." "Including children," Ambassador Shen added. She was their diplomatic officer. She had been quiet until now. "They don't separate military and civilian ships like we do. If that's a colony ship, there will be young ones on board." Looked at the tactical display. The Eternal Flame was 2 hours away if they went as fast as possible. The readings showed it was surrounded by bioships. It was taking heavy damage. He checked the Coalition response times. The nearest military ships were the 5th Fleet. They were near the Arcturus Gate. They were 3 days away. "That ship has maybe 6 hours before its shields fail," Greg said quietly. He was reading the same data. Probably less. Knew what his first officer was thinking. They were an exploration ship. They had only light weapons. Their crew was 60 people. The Valiant Dawn had mining equipment and basic defense systems. But they were no match for a swarm. If they got involved, they would risk every person on the ship. And they would be doing it for a species that had made it clear that humans were beneath them. "Sir," Greg continued quietly, "we have no treaty with the No Defense Agreement. No obligation at all. If we go there and get destroyed, Earth won't even complain because we would be acting outside our authority." "I know the political situation, Commander." "Then you know they wouldn't do the same for us. They've made their position on humanity very clear." Looked at the display again. Somewhere on that dying ship were people who had never hurt him, people who were probably scared, children who didn't understand why the universe had turned against them. He thought about his own daughter back on Earth. He tried to imagine her scared and alone while help stayed away because of politics and pride. "Boost the signal. I want to hear it again." She did. The alien song filled the bridge again. This time listened past the beauty to the fear underneath. It was a parent crying out, a desperate call. It wasn't from a proud ancient race looking down on primitive mammals. It was from someone who loved their children and couldn't protect them. "Commander," said, his voice was firm. "Set a course for the Eternal Flame, maximum speed, all hands to battle stations." Greg's face tightened, but he nodded. "Yes, sir. Helm, change course. Engineering, give me every bit of speed you can." "Captain," said carefully, "I support this decision, but you should know this will have consequences. We're about to enter a situation with no backup and no permission. Then I suggest you start writing a very good report, Ambassador, because we're going to need a good explanation when this is over." The Valiant Dawn's engines flared bright as the ship changed course. It raced toward a cry that had echoed across the darkness. In the depths of space, a dragon was calling, and for perhaps the first time in their history, humanity was answering. As they moved faster, continued watching the transmission, the signal was getting weaker. The fear in it was growing stronger. She tried to understand more of what was being said. The language was complex. Part of it was telepathic, but the raw emotion needed no translation. "Sir," she said after a moment, "I'm picking up more signals now, weaker ones. I think they're from the young ones, the children, they're calling too." Closed his eyes for a second. Of course they were. Children always called for help when monsters came. That was what children did, and adults, the ones who were supposed to keep them safe, had a choice to make. Humanity had made its choice. "How long until we get there?" asked. 1 hour and 43 minutes at current speed, the helmsman reported. "Not fast enough. Chief, I need more speed." From engineering, Chief's voice came through the intercom. "Sir, we're already pushing past safe limits. I can give you another 2%, but we'll damage the engines." "Do it. We'll fix the engines later." "Yes, Captain, don't say I didn't warn you." The ship shook as the engines pushed beyond their design limits. On the tactical display, the distance to the eternal flame slowly got smaller. Watched the numbers count down. He tried not to think about what they were flying into. His crew was good, but they were explorers and scientists, not soldiers. They were about to face one of the most dangerous species in the galaxy with mining equipment and determination. But they were also human, and humans had a reputation in the galaxy, a reputation that was still being written. They were new to the coalition. Most species still didn't know what to think of them. They had dismissed them as unimportant. That was about to change. "All stations ready, sir," Greg announced. "We're as prepared as we can be." "Then I guess we'll find out if we're crazy or brave," replied. "My money is on both." Suddenly looked up from her console. Her face was pale. "Captain, I'm getting a direct transmission. It's coming from inside the eternal flame. Someone is calling us specifically." "Put it through." The voice that came through was young and scared, but it was also trying to be brave. It spoke in broken English with a heavy accent. "Human ship, this is Lyra, daughter of the flame. Please, they are killing us. The adults will not ask, but I ask. Please help. Please save the little ones." The bridge went completely silent, felt something twist in his chest. A child was reaching across the huge cultural gap because children understood what adults sometimes forgot. When monsters came, you called for help from anyone who might answer. The eternal flame was huge. It was 5 times bigger than the Valiant Dawn. It hung in space like a wounded animal. Its smooth curves were broken by large holes in the hull. Energy shields flickered weakly around the colony ship. They barely held against the swarm of strange ships that surrounded it. Had seen videos of bioships before, but nothing prepared him for seeing them in real life. They were not ships in the normal sense. They were living weapons. They looked like masses of shell and corrupted flesh. They moved with disturbing grace. Dozens of them circled the ship. They fired streams of acid and launched boarding pods that burrowed into the hull like insects. "Mother of God," someone whispered on the bridge. "Stay steady," ordered. His voice was calm despite the horror in front of them. "Tactical, give me firing solutions. Communications, contact the eternal flame. Let them know we're here." Greg worked at his console. He marked targets on the tactical display. "Sir, we have 43 bioships in range. More are arriving every few minutes. Our mining charges and cutting lasers won't do much against those numbers." "We don't need to destroy them all, Commander. We just need to give them some breathing room." Made contact with the eternal flame. The main came to life. The being that appeared was she was also clearly very old. She stood nearly 7 feet tall. Her scales shimmered like copper. Her eyes held the weight of centuries. Despite the chaos behind her, she stood perfectly straight. "I am Elder Matriarch, commander of this vessel," she said. Her voice had harmonics that the translation software struggled with. "Human ship, you should not be here. This is not your concern." "With respect, Matriarch, a child on your ship made it my concern," replied evenly. "We're here to help." His expression was hard to read, but something flickered in those ancient eyes. Pride, perhaps, or shame. "We do not need help from younger species, though we'll handle this threat as we have handled all threats for 10,000 years." "Then why is your ship falling apart?" The direct words hung in the space between them. Another huge impact shook the eternal flame. Alarms rang in the background of the transmission. Remained still, but saw her claws dig slightly into her throne. Captain said urgently, I'm reading multiple breaches in their nursery section, where they keep the young. Didn't wait for permission. Commander, attack pattern Delta. Target those bioships near their nursery section. Chief, arm the mining charges. Captain Pierce began. Her tone was sharp with warning. Matriarch, you can file a complaint with the Coalition after your children are safe, interrupted. Helm, take us in. The valiant Dawn moved forward. For a moment thought he saw something like respect flash across face. Then the transmission cut out. Multiple contacts locking onto us, Greg reported. They've noticed we're here. Good, let's give them something to remember. Fire. The fight that followed was nothing like clean military battles. It was chaos. The valiant Dawn dove into the swarm. Its weapons fired in every direction. Mining lasers designed to cut through asteroids carved into bioship hulls. Explosive charges meant for digging became weapons. They responded with fury. Acid projectiles splashed against the shields. They ate through the energy barriers faster than the generators could fix them. The ship shook under multiple impacts. Somewhere below decks, Chief was probably cursing as he fought to keep systems running. Hull breach on Deck 4, reported. Emergency doors holding. Keep us moving, ordered. Don't let them get a clean shot. The helmsman was a young woman named. She moved the ship through the battlefield with great skill. The valiant Dawn was not built for combat moves, but she made it work anyway. She slid between bioships and used their own size against them. On the tactical display, watch the patterns. They fought like a hive mind. They were coordinated and efficient. They expected coalition military tactics, the kind of careful by-the-book moves that dominated space warfare. But humans were new to this. Humans didn't have centuries of tradition weighing them down. They had improvisation, stubbornness, and a talent for turning the wrong tool into the right weapon. Chief called down to engineering. What's the power of our remaining mining charges? Enough to crack a small asteroid, replied. His voice was strained. Why do I think you're about to use them for something they weren't made for? Because you know me. Can you set them for remote detonation? A pause. Sir, are you planning what I think you're planning? Depends. Are you thinking I want to turn our cargo bay into a giant gun? That's suicide. The alone could break our spine. But would it work? Another pause, longer this time. Then's voice came back, could hear the grin in it. Hell yes, it would work. Give me 2 minutes. Smiled grimly. This was why he loved his crew. They were crazy enough to follow him into the fire and smart enough to make the impossible happen. Captain, Greg said suddenly, the Eternal Flame just lost forward shields. They are focusing fire on the nursery section. Onzo watched in horror as bioships attached to the ship's hull. They began cutting through. He could imagine what was happening inside. Parents trying to shield their young. Children crying out in fear. Time was running out. Helm, turn us around. Put us between them and that breach. Communications, get me matriarch. The transmission reconnected. Looked even more tired than before, but she still stood proud. Captain Pierce, your help has been noted, but you must leave. You will be destroyed if you stay. Then we'll be destroyed together, replied. Matriarch, I'm offering to evacuate your civilians, especially the young. My ship has room. For the first time's calm face broke. She stared at him as if he had spoken an alien language. You would take young onto your vessel, risk your crew for our children. They're children, said simply. That's all the reason I need. Behind, another appeared, smaller, younger, with scales that still held the shine of youth. Lyra realized, the one who had called out to them. Grandmother, Lyra said urgently in her own language, which the translator changed to English. The humans came. They heard me, please. Looked at her granddaughter, then back at. For a long moment she was silent. Then slowly she bowed her head slightly. Begin evacuation, she ordered her crew. Then to Captain Pierce, if you betray this trust, I will personally make sure your name becomes a curse among the stars. If I betray this trust, I'll deserve it, replied. Start sending them over. We'll protect them with everything we have. The transporter room began filling with young within minutes. They appeared in groups. Some were no bigger than human children. Others were nearly teenage in size. All were scared. The human crew members waiting in the transporter bay moved quickly to comfort them. They spoke softly and offered gentle touches, not knowing if such gestures were right. Worked from the bridge while watching the battle. 2,000 so far, sir. More coming. Make room, ordered. Use the cargo bays, the rec rooms, anywhere we have space. And someone get Dr. Ward down there. Those kids need to see a friendly face. Dr. Ward, their chief medical officer, was already on her way. She appeared on screen moments later. Her gray hair was tied back. Her face was determined. Captain, I don't know anything about biology. Then learn fast, Doctor. Right now, all that matters is making them feel safe. Understood, Ward out. The battle continued outside. The Valiant Dawn positioned itself as a shield between the eternal flame and the swarm. It took hit after hit. Systems failed one by one. The shields dropped to 20%, then 10%. Hull breaches, but the ship held. The evacuation continued. Last group coming through, reported. That's all the young they can spare. Matriarch says the adults will stay and fight. Tell her we're not going anywhere either. Sir, our weapons are almost gone. Shields are critical if we stay. I know, Commander. Watch the tactical display as more bioships closed in. But we came here to save children. I plan to see that through. Greg met his eyes and nodded slowly. The rest of the bridge crew stayed at their stations without comment. They had all made their choice when they followed into this mess. None of them seemed to regret it. In the corridors of the Valiant Dawn, human crew members and young huddled together as the ship shook. Language barriers meant nothing. Fear was the same everywhere. So was the need for comfort. An engineer named Danny Wu sat with 3 young ones pressed against him. He hummed a song his mother had taught him. A young woman from navigation held a child's clawed hand. Both of them tried not to cry. And somewhere on the bridge looked down at her console. Lyra had found her way up from the transporter bay. The young stood beside her station. She watched the chaos on the screens. You came, Lyra whispered in broken English. No one else came, but you did. Reached out carefully. Then she gently placed a hand on Lyra's shoulder. Of course we came. When children call for help, humans answer. That's what we do. On the main, another wave of bioships approached. Straightened in his chair. He prepared to give what might be his final orders. Behind him, through the walls and corridors, 2,000 alien children trusted that the humans would keep them safe. He didn't plan to let them down. All remaining power to forward shields, he ordered. Helm, if they want these kids, they have to go. The corridors of the Valiant Dawn had become a shelter for the lost and scared. Young filled every available space. Their scales reflected the emergency, lighting in shades of copper, green, and gold. They gathered in groups, naturally seeking the warmth of others. Human crew members moved among them, offering comfort despite not sharing a language. Had stayed on the bridge, but she had set up a small station for Lyra beside her console. The young seemed to have bonded with her, or perhaps it was the other way around. Lyra had an ability to sense emotions that most adults apparently suppressed. She could feel what the humans were feeling with surprising accuracy. Your people are scared, Lyra said softly. Her English was getting better with each sentence. But not for themselves, for us. That's right, replied, checking another damage report. We're going to protect you. Why, we have been unkind to your species. The elders speak of humans as lesser beings. Stopped her work and looked down at the young. Being kind isn't about who deserves it, it's about who needs it, and right now you need it. Before Lyra could respond, alarms rang across the bridge. The swarm had made their assault stronger. They sensed weakness. Bioships crashed against the Valiant Dawn's failing shields like waves against a breaking wall. Shields at 4%, Greg reported grimly. We have maybe one more hit before they collapse completely. Take power from life support in the empty sections, ordered. Every bit we can spare goes to shields. In the medical bay, Dr. Ward worked frantically with injured young. She had learned more about alien biology in the past 2 hours than in her entire medical career. The basics were similar enough. Stop bleeding, steady the vital signs, prevent shock. But the differences were big. Blood turned solid when exposed to oxygen. This required different sealing methods. Their pain responses were tied to temperature rather than pressure. She had lost one patient, a small child who had been too badly injured during the initial attack on the eternal flame. The little one had died in her arms. Ward had cried even as she continued working on the others. 2 of her human nurses were crying too, but their hands stayed steady. Dr. Ward to bridge, she called through the intercom. I need to know how long we have. Some of these injuries need surgery, but if we're about to be torn apart, I need to work differently. voice came back, steady despite everything. "Do your job, Doctor, we'll do ours." It was no answer at all, but it was everything she needed to hear. Ward turned back to her patients and kept working. On the bridge, stared at the tactical display. He tried to find a solution that didn't end with everyone dying. The eternal flame was still standing, but barely. Her weapons were gone. Her shields were down. The adult aboard were fighting with everything they had, but it wasn't enough. They kept coming. "Captain," said suddenly, "I'm getting a transmission. It's not from the eternal flame." "Source?" "The swarm, sir. It's speaking to you directly." Felt cold run down his spine. The worked as a hive mind. Thousands of individual creatures sharing one consciousness. They rarely talked to their prey except to offer false surrender terms. If they were contacting him now, it meant something had changed. "Put it through, audio only." The voice that came out was wrong. It sounded like dozens of voices speaking in perfect harmony. It created sounds that hurt to hear. The translation software struggled to turn it into English. "Human vessel, we see your courage. We offer terms. Leave now and we will allow you to go. Stay and you will be consumed with the..." Looked around his bridge. His crew met his gaze one by one. Greg shook his head slightly, but his hand stayed steady on the weapon's console, glanced at Lyra, then straightened her shoulders. Throughout the ship, he knew his people were listening, waiting for his decision. He opened a channel not just to but to every crew member aboard the Valiant Dawn. They all deserved to hear this. "This is Captain Pierce. They have offered to let us leave. They'll consume including the 2,000 children we're protecting, and let us fly away." He paused, letting the words settle. "I'm going to say no to their offer. We came here to save lives. We're not leaving until we've done that. If anyone aboard this ship disagrees, say so now." The communication channel stayed silent for a long moment. Then Chief's voice came through from engineering. "Sir, with respect, anyone who would abandon those kids can throw themselves out an airlock. The rest of us have work to do. Engineering out." One by one, other voices joined in. Dr. Ward from Medical, Danny Wu from the cargo bays where he was still comforting scared children. From the helm, every single crew member, not one voice disagreed. Felt something grow in his chest. Pride, perhaps, or love for these crazy, beautiful humans who had followed him into hell because it was the right thing to do. He opened a channel to "This is Captain Pierce of the human vessel Valiant Dawn. We don't leave children behind. Not theirs, not ours, not anyone's. If you want them, you have to go through us first. And I promise you we'll make you work for every single life." The response was immediate and terrible. The entire swarm turned toward the Valiant Dawn, where before they had been splitting their attention between the two ships, now every bioship focused on the humans who had dared to defy them. "Multiple contacts incoming," Greg reported. His voice was tight. "All of them." "Hold position," ordered. "Don't give them an inch." The next few minutes were among the most frightening of life. The ship lurched and shook under impact after impact. Hull breaches, systems failed in waves. The lights on the bridge flickered, then switched to emergency power. Somewhere below decks, he heard the scream of tearing metal. But they held. Then something unexpected happened. On the eternal flames, weapons suddenly lit up with golden fire. Not the usual energy discharge, but something else. Something that looked almost alive. "What is that?" Greg breathed. A transmission came through from Matriarch. She appeared on screen. Now her scales glowed with the same golden light. Behind her, other adults were visible. All of them were bright with inner fire. "Captain Pierce," she said. Her voice carried sounds of power and ancient memory. "What you are seeing is called the Flame Song. It is a technique from the old times when our people were warriors rather than politicians. We channel our life energy into our weapons. We burn away tomorrow for strength today." "That sounds like a suicide technique," said. "It is, or it was, before we became civilized and forgot what true sacrifice meant." Eyes locked on his through the screen. "But watching your species stand between our children and death has reminded us what we once were, what we should have stayed." "Matriarch, you don't have to." "Do not tell an ancient species what we must do, young human," she interrupted, but there was no anger in her voice. "You have shown us courage. We will show you why they were once feared across 1,000 star systems. Protect our young. We will handle the swarm." The eternal flames weapons fired. The golden energy tore through bioships like they were paper. The hive mind screamed. It was a sound that registered on the audio pickups despite the vacuum of space. More ships arrived, drawn by the fight, but they met them with weapons that had not been seen in 1,000 years. In engineering, Chief watched his readouts and shook his head in amazement. Boss, whatever they're doing, it's giving off energy readings I didn't think were possible. They're not just powering their weapons, they're making them burn with pure will. Understood then. They were remembering who they had been before civilization had dulled their edges. They were becoming dragons again, and dragons did not yield to parasites. But it wasn't enough. Even with the flame song, even with renewed fury, the swarm had numbers. For every bioship destroyed, 2 more appeared. The mothership appeared. It was a huge organism 10 times the size of any other vessel. It emerged from the depths of space, drawn by the battle. Sir, Greg said quietly, we can't win this, not like this. Knew he was right. They had given everything, but it wasn't going to be enough. The mothership would coordinate the swarm, overwhelm their defenses, and eventually consume everyone aboard both vessels. He looked at the star charts, searching for anything that might help. His eyes caught on a nearby nebula, the Cascade Nebula. It was known for violent energy storms and space distortions. Ships avoided it because the radiation could destroy electronics. The distortions could tear a hull apart. Commander, he said slowly, how badly do you want to live through this? Greg followed his gaze to the nebula and went pale. Sir, you can't be serious. They rely on their biosensors to coordinate. Those storms will blind them. The radiation will hurt us, but it'll hurt them worse. It'll also kill us. Those distortions don't care about shields or armor. But we would have a chance. Out here we have none. Opened a channel to the eternal flame. Matriarch, I'm about to do something incredibly stupid. I recommend you follow us if you want to live. Your definition of stupid interests me, Captain, she replied. Explain. We're going into the Cascade Nebula. It's going to hurt, but it might give us an advantage. They won't expect it. There was a long pause, then actually laughed. It sounded like bells made of metal. Human, you are either the bravest being I have ever met or the most insane, perhaps both. Very well, the eternal flame will follow the valiant dawn. Let us see if either of us survives your plan. Turned to his crew. You heard her. Helm set course for the Cascade Nebula, maximum speed. All hands secure for heavy shaking and prepare for system failures. Captain said softly, looking at Lyra who sat beside her. The children are scared. Then we better make sure they have something to tell their own children someday, replied. A story about how humans and flew into hell together and came out the other side. The valiant dawn turned toward the rolling chaos of the Cascade Nebula. Behind them, the eternal flame followed. And behind them both, the swarm pursued, confident in their certain victory. None of them knew that what happened next would become the story that changed the galaxy forever. Us first, Cascade Nebula looked like a wound in space. Streams of gas twisted in impossible patterns. Lightning storms lit it from within. The storms would make anything found in nature look tiny. Radiation levels jumped up and down in random bursts. Gravity pulled and pushed at the same time. It was beautiful and terrible. Flying into it was almost certainly suicide. The valiant dawn crossed the edge first. Immediately every system screamed in protest. The shields flared bright as they tried to deflect radiation that came from every direction. Sensors went crazy, showing fake contacts that appeared and vanished in microseconds. The ship's structure field warped under stress. The hull groaned like a living thing in pain. All power to structure and shields, ordered. He gripped his armrests as the ship shook beneath him. Helm, keep us moving. Don't let the gravity wells catch us. Fought the controls with desperate skill. Sir, I have about 3 seconds of sensor warning before we hit another distortion. This is insane. Insane is our specialty. Stay with it. Behind them, the eternal flame entered the nebula. The massive colony ship moved with surprising grace despite its damage. The adult piloted it with the kind of instinct that came from 10,000 years of. Their shields held better than the human vessels, but they were also taking more punishment from their earlier damage. The swarm followed without hesitation. Bioships didn't rely on mechanical sensors the way technology-based craft did. They navigated by instinct and hive-mind coordination. The nebula would slow them down, but not stop them. Multiple contacts still following, Greg reported. His hands moved across his console. They're not giving up. Didn't expect them to, replied. How are our passengers? Checked the internal sensors. Terrified but secure. Dr. Ward reports some injuries from the shaking, but nothing critical yet. Chief is running around engineering trying to keep systems online. On time's voice came through the intercom. Captain, I'm literally holding the power connections together with my hands right now. Whatever you're planning, do it fast because I can't keep this up much longer. Just need you to hold it together a little longer, Chief. Famous last words, muttered, but the line stayed open. Could hear him shouting orders to his team. Their voices were tight with stress but still working. Throughout the ship, human crew members and Young rode out the storm together. Danny Wu had wedged himself into a corner of the cargo bay with 5 children pressed against him. All of them were holding on as the ship shook. He sang to them, making up words because the melody was all that mattered. The Young hummed along, creating harmonies that shouldn't have worked but somehow did. In medical, Dr. Ward strapped down patients and herself. She continued to treat injuries with one hand while holding on with the other. A teenage named had started helping her. He used his clawed hands with surprising gentleness to hold instruments and help with stitches. They couldn't speak each other's languages, but they understood medicine. On the bridge, Lyra stayed beside. Her emotion-sensing abilities were overwhelmed by the fear and determination swirling through the crew. She could feel their terror, yes, but underneath it was something else. Something she had never felt from the adults of her own species. An absolute, unshakable determination to see this through. To protect those who couldn't protect themselves. Your people are strange, she said to over the sound of alarms and groaning metal. You are so scared, but you do not stop. Looked down at her and smiled grimly. That's the human secret, kid. Being brave doesn't mean you're not scared. It means you do what needs doing even though you're scared. The elders say humans are weak because you feel too much. The elders are wrong. Feeling everything is what makes us strong. A massive gravity eddy caught the ship, sending it into a spin, screamed orders at her console, fighting the helm with everything she had. The valiant Dawn tumbled through space. Systems failed. Crew members cried out as they were thrown against walls. For a long, terrible moment, it seemed like they would tear apart. Then found an escape path and hit the engines. The ship shot forward, narrowly avoiding a series of space distortions that would have crushed them. Behind them, several bioships weren't so lucky. They were caught in the gravity well and collapsed. Good flying, said. His voice was remarkably steady. Thank you, sir. Also, I think I'm going to throw up. Hold it together a little longer. The eternal flame wasn't doing as well. The massive ship was too large to move through the chaos with the same speed as the valiant Dawn. A transmission came through from Matriarch. Her image flickered with interference. Captain Pierce, our engines are failing. We cannot continue at this pace. His mind raced. Can you hold position? Use the nebula as cover. For a time, but the swarm will find us eventually. Then we draw them away, make them think you're not worth chasing. He turned to Greg. Commander, all remaining weapons. I want us to look like the biggest threat they've ever seen. Sir, we barely have any weapons left. Then we fake it, broadcast on all frequencies, make noise, lots of it. I want every bioship in this nebula thinking we're the target they need to kill. His fingers flew across her console. Within seconds, the valiant Dawn was screaming into the void on every wavelength. A target so loud and annoying that they couldn't ignore it. The swarm's attention shifted, drawn away from the wounded eternal flame. It's working, Greg reported. Multiple contacts changing direction. They're coming for us. Good, helm, take us deeper into the nebula. Let's see how far they're willing to follow. The valiant Dawn dove into the heart of the storm, into regions where the sensors simply stopped working and navigation became pure instinct. Flew blind, making decisions based on nothing but gut feeling and desperation. Somehow, impossibly, she kept them alive. The followed, they abandoned the eternal flame to chase the human ship that dared to mock them. Their mothership, the massive organism that coordinated the entire swarm, pushed through the nebula's defenses. It was focused only on destroying these impudent mammals. Captain, Greg said, the mothership is closing. At this rate, it'll be on us in 5 minutes. Pulled up the tactical display, what little of it still worked. They were near the center of the nebula now. They were approaching what the charts called the eye of the storm. It was a massive radiation tornado, a cosmic tornado that stripped matter down to atoms. Nothing could survive inside it. Helm, how close can you get us to the eye? Looked at him like he had lost his mind. Sir, that's certain death. So is staying out here with the mothership breathing down our necks. Can you do it? She stared at the barely working navigational display, then at her own hands on the controls. I can get us close, but I can't promise we'll get back out. That's all I need, take us in. Captain said urgently, what about the passengers, the children? Closed his eyes briefly. In his mind, he saw his own daughter back on Earth. Then he saw the faces of the young huddled throughout his ship. They were trusting that the humans would keep them safe. We're doing this to save them, he said quietly. All of them trust me. Looked at Lyra, who met her gaze with ancient eyes and a young face. The child nodded slowly. He will not fail us, she said simply. I can feel it. The valiant Dawn turned toward the eye of the storm. A tiny ship flying deliberately toward the one thing in the universe guaranteed to kill them. The swarm followed, confident in their victory. Their mothership pulsed with anticipation, already tasting the meal to come. Opened a channel to Chief. I need you to do something impossible. That's been my entire day, sir. I need you to overload every single weapon system we have left. Every laser, every mining charge, every cutting torch. I want them to channel everything into one massive burst. There was a long silence. Sir, that will destroy the ship, the energy backwash alone. I know, but it'll take the mothership with us. And if we're lucky, the eternal flame will be far enough away to survive. And if we're not lucky, then we tried, that's all anyone can ask. Another pause, then's voice came back, thick with emotion. It's been an honor serving with you, Captain. Give me 3 minutes. Throughout the ship, crew members continued their work. No one panicked. No one complained. They had all understood what this mission might cost when they answered that first desperate cry. They had made their choice. They stood by it. In the cargo bays, Danny Wu hugged the children closer and whispered that everything would be okay. He hoped he wasn't lying. In medical, Dr. Ward finished treating her patients and strapped herself in for whatever came next. The young who had been helping her took her hand in his clawed one. Neither spoke, but the gesture said everything. On the bridge, looked at the timer counting down. 3 minutes until the weapons overloaded. 3 minutes until they fired everything they had into the heart of the mothership. 3 minutes until the valiant Dawn and all aboard her became a brief, bright flash in the dark. She looked at Lyra. I'm sorry we couldn't get you home. Lyra's eyes swirled with colors that was learning to read as emotions. You did get us home, the young said. Home is wherever someone cares enough to fight for you. Heard the exchange and felt something break open in his chest. He thought about all the choices that had led to this moment. The distress signal, the decision to respond, the children's faces. He didn't regret any of it. All hands, he said over the ship-wide intercom. In 60 seconds, we're going to hit the mothership with everything we've got. It's going to be bright, it's going to be loud, and we're probably not going to see the other side of it. But those kids in our cargo bays are going to survive. The eternal flame is going to escape, and everyone in this galaxy is going to remember that humanity doesn't abandon the helpless, no matter the cost. He paused, then added, It's been the honor of my life to serve with all of you. Tell the story when you can. Make sure they know we chose this. Around him, his bridge crew straightened at their stations. Greg locked in firing solutions. Sent a final message buoy, launching their log into the nebula for someone to find later. Held the helm steady, flying them directly into the jaws of the monster. 30 seconds. The mothership filled the ahead. It was aware now, aware that the human ship was doing something suicidal. The hive mind screamed warnings across the network, but it was too late to stop. 20 seconds. In engineering, finished the final connections. Energy crackled along lines never meant to handle such power. The ship vibrated with barely contained destruction. 10 seconds. Opened a channel to Matriarch. Get your people out of here, protect our kids. Captain Pierce began. For the first time, her voice carried no pride, only deep respect. Your species is young, but today you have taught an ancient race the meaning of true courage. We will remember. The stars will remember. 3 seconds. Looked at his crew one last time. They looked back unafraid. They had lived well. They were dying for something that mattered. Fire, he said quietly. The valiant Dawn unleashed everything it had left. Mining lasers designed for asteroids burned at maximum power. Cutting torches meant for salvage work channeled full energy. Explosive charges detonated in sequence. Their force was directed forward through makeshift focusing arrays that Chief had put together with genius and desperation. But it wasn't just human weapons that fired. At the last possible second, the eternal flame emerged from the nebula's depths. Its golden flame song burned brighter than ever before. The vessel moved with impossible speed for something so massive. It placed itself alongside the tiny human ship. Matriarch's voice thundered across every frequency. "You will not die alone, Captain Pierce. The do not forget debts. We do not abandon those who fought for our children." The two ships, one human and one dragon, fired as one. The combined assault was beyond anything they had expected. Human improvisation married to ancient power. Technology fused with will. The energy discharge lit up the entire nebula, a second sun born from desperation and courage. The mothership tried to adapt. Its organic systems tried to reconfigure to absorb the attack. But there was too much, too fast. The flame song found its weak points. The human weapons tore through healing tissue faster than it could repair itself. The massive organism shuddered. Its hive mind screamed across dimensions as it realized, perhaps for the first time in its species' existence, that it had made a fatal error. It had underestimated the capacity for sacrifice in species that valued individuals rather than the collective. The mothership exploded, a catastrophic failure that sent shockwaves through the surrounding swarm. Bioships lost coordination, suddenly operating as individuals rather than a unified consciousness. They scattered, fleeing into the nebula's depths, broken and without a leader. On the Valiant Dawn gripped his armrests as the explosion's shockwave hit them. The ship tumbled. Systems failed in waves. The lights died. Life support went offline. For a moment they floated dead in space, wondered if they had one only to die anyway. Then slowly emergency power kicked in. Red lights filled the bridge. Chief's voice crackled through on emergency channels. "Well, we're not dead. I'm honestly surprised. Anyone else surprised?" Laughter, slightly crazy, echoed through the intercom. The Valiant Dawn was a wreck. They were stranded in a deadly nebula with no engines and failing life support. But they were alive. "Damage report," said. His voice was raw. Reports came in from across the ship. Hull breaches everywhere. Main power gone. Engines offline, but no deaths among the crew. The young were shaken but unhurt, protected in the interior sections. Against all odds, they had survived. "Sir," said, "I'm getting a transmission from the Eternal Flame. They're not in much better shape than us, but they're offering to take us aboard. Emergency transport." "Tell them yes. Get everyone ready for evacuation." Over the next hour, the remains of the Valiant Dawn's crew transferred to the Eternal Flame. Human crew members helped Young across, completing the circle of protection. The colony ship's transport systems were damaged, so they did it the old way, in emergency suits, moving through the void in small groups. Was the last to leave his ship, as was tradition. He stood on the bridge one final time. He looked at the stations where his crew had performed miracles. Then he sealed his helmet and stepped into the airlock. The Eternal Flame's corridors were vast and beautiful. They were designed with smooth curves that human building never quite achieved. Adult moved through them with renewed purpose. Their scales still carried traces of the golden flame song. They looked at the humans with expressions that seemed remarkably like respect. Was brought to what he guessed was the command deck. Matriarch waited there, surrounded by other elders. She was visibly tired. Her scales were dulled from the flame song's toll, but she stood straight. "Captain Pierce," she said formally, "on behalf of all aboard this vessel, I acknowledge a debt that can never be truly repaid. You and your crew risked extinction for beings who had shown you only contempt." "We didn't do it for gratitude," replied. "We did it because it was right." "That is precisely why it means so much." Stepped forward, realized she was performing some kind of ritual. The other elders joined her. They began to sing, not in the desperate way of the distress signal, but in rich, harmonious tones that filled the chamber with sound and meaning. Through his suit's translator understood fragments, words about fire and protection, about wings spread over the helpless, about a new family born not of blood but of shared sacrifice. When the song ended, spoke again. "Captain Pierce, I declare you and your crew as flamekin to the people. This is the highest honor we can give. It means that from this day forward you are considered part of our greater family. What threatens you threatens us. What you celebrate, we celebrate. What you need, we provide if it is within our power." Heard his crew members behind him, those who had made it to the command deck. They were silent, understanding the weight of what was being offered. "Matriarch," he said carefully, "I'm honored, but you should know that humans don't make promises lightly. If we're family now, that works both ways. You call, we answer, even if it's inconvenient, even if it costs us." His expression shifted to something that might have been a smile. "I would expect nothing less from the species that flew into hell to save our children." Over the next several hours, as the eternal flame limped toward the nearest safe harbor, the story began to spread. Its message buoy was found by a coalition patrol ship. The logs of both vessels were recovered. Within a day, every species in the known galaxy had heard about the battle in the Cascade Nebula. The response was immediate and powerful. Species that had dismissed humanity as unimportant suddenly wanted to know more about these strange mammals. The Council, hearing that their ancient matriarch had declared humans as flamekin, reversed centuries of isolation policy. Diplomatic channels opened. Trade agreements were proposed. Cultural exchanges began. But more than that, something shifted in the galaxy's thinking. The story wasn't just about a battle. It was about a choice. When presented with the chance to save themselves by abandoning others, humans had chosen otherwise. They had chosen children over safety, compassion over calculation, doing what was right over doing what was easy. 3 months later, Pierce stood on Earth. He was in front of a gathering of officials from a dozen species. He had been awarded Earth's Medal of Honor and the Flame Cross. He had given speeches and attended ceremonies, but none of it felt as real as the moment when Lyra, now serving as a junior cultural ambassador, approached him with something small in her clawed hands. "Captain Pierce," she said in perfect English now, "I made this for you. When we are young, create art of the moments that matter most. This is mine." She handed him a small crystal, the kind used to store holographic memories. When he turned it on, a three-dimensional scene appeared. It showed the valiant Dawn, tiny and damaged, placing itself between the eternal flame and the swarm. Around the edges of the image, Lyra had added words in both English and "Thank you for hearing me. Thank you for teaching us that courage is not the absence of fear, but the choice to act despite it. Thank you for showing us that the measure of a species is not in how strong they are, but in how fiercely they protect the weak." Felt his eyes burn with tears he didn't shed. He looked at this young being who represented a species his own people barely knew. She had bridged a gap that should have been impossible. "Thank you, Lyra," he managed. "We were just doing what anyone should do." "No," she replied. Her eyes swirled with colors he now recognized as deep emotion. "You did what no one else did. You answered when I called. That's why the stars shook. Not because of the battle, but because for the first time in galactic history, a species proved that power and compassion could exist together." Later, after the ceremony, stood with his crew on a balcony overlooking Earth's skyline. His daughter sat on his shoulders, asking questions about aliens and spaceships. Greg stood nearby with, who had been promoted to first officer. Chief was already talking about his next engineering project. Dr. Ward had started a program to train medical people in alien biology. They had all changed. The galaxy had changed. Because on one day in the darkness between stars, they had heard a child cry for help and decided that was all the reason they needed to act. "You think we'll go back to space?" asked. "After all this?" Looked up at the stars. Somewhere out there, Matriarch commanded her people with renewed purpose. Young who had survived spoke of the humans who had protected them. Other species watched and wondered if they, too, might find this strange courage that led a tiny ship into impossible odds. "We never left," he replied. "Space isn't just out there, it's in here." He tapped his chest. "It's in the choice to answer when someone needs help, to stand when everyone else runs, to protect those who can't protect themselves. That's what makes us human. That's what shook the stars." His daughter tugged on his hair. "Daddy, tell me the story again, about the dragons and the humans." Smiled, "All right. Once upon a time, in the darkness between stars, there was a cry, a dragon's cry. And the humans, who were very small and very new to the galaxy, heard that cry, and they had to make a choice." "What choice?" his daughter asked, even though she knew the story by heart. "Whether to help beings who had never been kind to them, whether to risk everything for strangers, whether to do what was easy or what was right." "And what did they choose?" Looked at his crew, his family, his friends who had flown into hell beside him. "They chose to answer. And the answer they gave shook the stars so hard that the whole galaxy had to listen. And do you know what the galaxy learned?" "What?" "That the smallest ship can cast the biggest shadow if it stands in front of the sun. that power means nothing without compassion, and that when children cry for help, humans will always answer, no matter the cost. His daughter smiled and hugged his head. Overhead, the stars twinkled, no longer unknowable and distant, but full of potential and hope. Full of species learning to see each other not as competitors, but as potential family. All because one ship heard a cry and chose to respond. The story spread, as all great stories do. It was told in 1,000 languages on 1,000 worlds. Children of a dozen species grew up hearing about the valiant dawn and the eternal flame, about Captain Pierce and Matriarch, about the moment when humanity announced itself to the galaxy not with weapons, but with an outstretched hand to protect the helpless. And whenever someone asked why humans had done it, why they had risked everything for beings who had dismissed them as unimportant, the answer was always the same. Because when children cry for help, we answer. That's what humans do. In the years that followed, that simple principle became the foundation for a new era of galactic cooperation. Species that had never spoken to each other began talks, inspired by what they had seen. Thus, shaken from their isolation, became some of humanity's strongest supporters. The concept of flamekin spread to other species, creating networks of mutual protection and support. And somewhere in the depths of space, in a nebula where the stars still carried echoes of golden fire and human defiance, a small broken ship drifted as a monument. The valiant dawn was never recovered. It was left instead as a memorial to the day the galaxy learned that the species might just teach the oldest ones what really mattered. The dragons had cried, the humans had answered, and the stars would never forget. And the stars learned what it meant when humanity made a stand. The valiant dawn turned to face the swarm, a tiny ship against impossible odds, but it did not back down. It did not retreat. It stood between predators and prey, doing what humans had done since the first ancestor picked up a rock and defended their tribe. The stars watched, and somewhere in the dark, they began to understand that something new had entered the galaxy, something that would change everything. "Tell her we're coming," said quietly. "Tell her to hold on, tell her that humans never leave children behind." His fingers moved quickly across her console. She translated and sent the message. When she was done, a new sound came through, crying not from sadness but from hope. The valiant dawn flew on through the dark, racing toward dragons and monsters. The stars watched in silence. Perhaps they wondered if they were about to see something that would echo through the ages. They were.